Hey guys, we're going to watch the Futurama episode that talks about free will. It opens up a lot of philosophical questions, as I always say. So, let's go. The episode starts with Bender questioning whether he should wear his nerd glasses and saying that every decision we make opens up a universe of possibilities.
Every decision we make opens up a universe of possibilities. I put it to you that as sentient beings, each choice we make is precious.
Well, in that case, don't wear them.
Who asked you?
He decides to wear the glasses and because of that, he meets a robot on the street who asks if he is a university student and invites him to a party. Since he is not a university student, he goes to enroll. When he gets there, he realizes it's very expensive and there are some mafia robots who lend him $10,000. Conveniently, of course. He registers, and as soon as he enters the classroom, he sits at the back and meets some guys from a gang who ask him if he wants to join. He says yes, and the scene cuts to the principal's office, where Bender says he's going to drop out of college after just a few minutes of class. The scene cuts, and from this point on, it's just Bender making bad decisions related to a lot of nonsense, such as using sparks or getting into conflict with a rival gang. After a bunch of bad decisions, he ends up in the robot hospital, where we see him reflecting on what he learned from the terrible day he had. He says that we should make good decisions because otherwise, we'll end up drowning in a pool of our own blood.
Still, to have your own pool.
Very deep.
Now let's see if I can make just one good one.
And as we can imagine, he didn't succeed, because as soon as he got out of the hospital, he robbed some kids who were selling cookies. Actually, it was more like the kids robbed him. After all this context, we really start the discussion about free will. We arrive at Bender's trial where he is accused of a bunch of things. He would be found guilty, but his lawyer stands up and says that Bender is what's known in scientific circles as a Unit 1 robot whose behavior is programmed by software. In other words, all the decisions he makes are actually the result of his programming. If he is bad, it's because he was programmed to be bad and doesn't have the freedom of choice or free will. So, how can we condemn an animal, for example, for acting according to its programming? If a tiger, for instance, eats meat, we can't expect anything different from it. If we neglect the fact that tigers eat meat and put a tiger to live among humans, it's natural that it might attack a human, since it's obvious that tigers eat meat. So, is the blame on us for neglecting the tiger's nature, or on the tiger for exercising its nature? The same applies to a robot in Bender's case. But what guarantees us humans that we have free will? And now I ask that we consider the words of authority that we use logic to arrive at some point. In this moment of the episode where Bender questions,
What's the point of living if I don't have free will?
he becomes quite happy upon realizing this fact because indeed he is a robot and was programmed. Later, he descends to the planet of the robots where only he can make a delivery and decides to abandon the ship and stay there, where he encounters an old robot who said,
Son, philosophy's for them's what don't gotta work for a living.
Don't believe his lies. Philosophy for everyone, for anyone, anywhere. And it is probably the greatest realization that there is indeed free will. Philosophy is the only thing that keeps you constant in life while all other things change and die. Your ability to question remains firm and intact, but there is a part in the episode where the robots are discussing politics and Bender questions them. After all, why should they continue making decisions if they are already pre-programmed? And this robot said,
Our decisions do matter. The fact that they're predetermined makes them no less important.
That's true. Even if there isn't actual freedom of choice, it doesn't make what we live any less important, since some of us are sentient beings. That means we know we are alive on a giant rotating wet ball. Bender becomes a monk and decides to try to find peace by following a religion, but when a monk tells him about an islet of free will that the robot's mother put there, he abandons everything and returns to Earth wanting to pursue this device. With the help of Fry and Leela, they break into the robot company to steal it. We see the robot's mother having a flashback with Doctor if I can build a positive thing, but I decided to abandon the idea because the robot's mother wanted them to have free will to revolt against humans. Okay, I understand you. Honestly, free will is a very interesting issue for us humans since a lot of things sell this idea. Do we really have it? I think yes and no at the same time. The calmest I will explain a few things. We do have more genetic load than we can choose. For example, breathing only becomes something conscious. And then you think about it, the heartbeats are another example. We cannot control the beats of our heart. We cannot choose when it stops beating. Nor can we control our feelings, and we also cannot control the thoughts that derive from that feeling, and we also cannot control the thoughts that derive from that feeling, and we also cannot control everything that happens to us, and we cannot control our genetics or our traits, and we cannot control the music we like, the games we like. You do not choose to be more introverted or extroverted. You do not choose. Okay, but what do we actually choose that falls within our free will? Well, there are two types of physics, roughly speaking: classical physics, where we can calculate where something will fall if we know its height, angle, and velocity, and quantum physics, where we can only predict with a certain probability where something might end up. If the universe were governed solely by classical physics, then if we knew all the initial conditions of a system, we could predict its entire trajectory. For example, if I knew all the initial conditions of the universe before the Big Bang, I could theoretically know everything that would happen. But of course, things aren't that simple because there's quantum physics, which I won't delve into deeply because I don't know much about it, but I know things there are probabilistic. It's all statistics. So, for comparison, even if I knew all the initial conditions of a quantum system, I couldn't say for certain if the trajectory would be as I predicted, but I could say there might be an 80% chance it would be as I predicted. What I mean by all of this is that there's a small chance you might not have free will, that you might not have freedom. There's a small chance that if I were born with your atoms on the day and hour and under the conditions you were born with, maybe, just maybe, I would be watching this video right now, thinking exactly what you're thinking. Maybe the only things that make us unique are our existence, and maybe not our essence. Maybe if I knew all my initial conditions, I could predict even the day of my death. And if I knew all your initial conditions, I could predict even the day of your death. Okay, let's go back to the episode. I know you want to know what happens next. Bender goes after the doctor and gets the device to see clearly what he's doing, to break free from his programming. In a vengeful act, he shoots the doctor, ends up in court because of it, and now he's free. That argument from the lawyer is no longer valid. He's guilty. Well, I think he went a bit too far to declare himself guilty, right? Yet he's still within his programming since that's what he wanted from the beginning. And look, if you analyze it from the start, what's within Bender's programming is to ignore and oppose, and he does that very well. In the final moments, that's exactly what he does when the doctor said he didn't want to hurt him. So, did Bender really have free will at that moment? Does the doctor, as a human, know what free will is? Leave your comment below, giving your opinion on free will. Until the next video.